Can I show you some clips from this? This is from the 1986 Coca-Cola Centennial Celebration. And as remarkable as it is, with the truck driving through an auditorium, the go-go dancing Coca-Cola enthusiasts, the Rockette-style can-canning Coca-Cola gear, the most remarkable thing might be that the drink they are celebrating is kind of similar to the one that debuted 100 years earlier. From 1890 to almost 1960, a Coke cost a nickel, but everything else changed. I want to explore how you actually got a soda in 1890, 1960, and 2020. And I want to show the insane changes in the ingredients, the containers, and the logistics. It'll take us through government busts, though not for the reasons you think, through technologies that profoundly changed American towns, and then the whole world. Sugar water went from headache-specific cure to near cult-like status.
The future is ours.
I thought that I understood soda. Then I turned back the calendar. It's 1890. Now, we need to set up some ground rules. This video is about soda, all soda, but it's gonna rely mostly on Coca-Cola. There's good reason for this. Look at Coca-Cola's annual report and you see a profoundly global company. Estimates vary, but people think that Coke controls 40 to 50% of the soda market, and Coca-Cola remains the top drink in the United States of America. Percentages in, say, the fountain drink market are even higher, and historically, it used to be even more significant. The heavy body of research available about the Coca-Cola Corporation makes it easiest to cross-check, along with the avid community of collectors, which is why I have created a poor man's museum over here. Because I can't afford this stuff, yet lots of examples are on eBay. 1890 was actually the perfect time to get a soda. This guy was lucky. Soda, then as now, typically comes from syrup and carbonated water. This Perrier sparkling water ad is from the 1900s, but it shows the natural sparkling spring where carbonated water took off. Since that moment, people started trying to make it artificially. In 1895, people typically made carbonated water near where it was served because it was hard to deliver in bottles. This Matthews catalog for making carbonated beverages is circa 1880, and it shows how the fountain could be small, but the apparatus was unwieldy. These fountains have awesome brand names, by the way, the Nile, the Dakota. This Pharmacist's magazine shows that most of these devices were still pretty large and unwieldy. The El Dorado is gorgeous, but permanent, and $1,650 in 1880 is like a 50 grand investment today. Getting carbonated water was a pharmacist's thing. And you'd mix that with syrups, like this 1855 ad, which shows cream syrups, but also with a vanilla, strawberry, lemon, and raspberry tweak. Menus like this 1881 one were common. Someone on Patreon told me that this clip of a diner is notorious for being oddly popular on TikTok, but it does show how the process used to work. So it makes sense that most sodas came from pharmacies in the beginning, and that new inventions often mixed patent medicines with taste. Coca-Cola, invented by pharmacist John Pemberton in 1886, was one of those. We have versions of the secret formula, but it was a syrup with vanilla, citric acid, lime, juice, sugar, caramel, some flavoring oils, and cola nuts, and coconut, where we also get cocaine. Now, rather than giggling that this guy was accidentally drinking a bunch of cocaine, we should realize that this was kind of the point. Before Coca-Cola, Pemberton made this as wine, with the leaf on the seal, because it exhilarates the mind and body. Not all sodas are caffeinated, but in the early version of Coca-Cola, there was also way more caffeine. So this guy, he was really exhilarated, weren't you? These ingredients affected the containers because it was hard to bottle carbonated water at the time. So soda was mostly a fountain thing. There were some bottles. The Hutchinson bottle was used for soda before 1890. It's $550 for this one. You can see how it would work here. You'd push this stopper down and drink your soda. But this bottle wasn't usable enough at scale. These containers limited logistics before 1890 as well. The syrup could be sold to multiple pharmacies, which it was, but the scale was small and the competition was fierce. A gallon of syrup made 128 drinks, and many pharmacists just made their own syrups. There was a reason soda grew in the South, near Coke's Atlanta home base. It was a summer drink. In winter, people just sold hot soda. It seems like their main ad technique was just saying the word hot soda over and over again. Hot soda, hot soda, hot soda, hot soda. This was such a pervasive idea that in the 1930s, Coke had to run a Thirst Has No Season campaign just to try to convince people to drink Coke when it was cold. So if this guy wanted a soda, he went to a pharmacy, sat down, drank it, and left.
Coca-Cola is being made available for your enjoyment.
Okay, 1960s guy gets a soda. In some ways, he is not that different from 1890s guy. Coke, for example, just stopped costing a nickel, which is what it had cost since the late 1890s. But almost everything else had changed. Carbonation had gone from basement production to full industry. Liquid CO2 was now common. This soda fountain might look like those ones from the 1880s, but look at the sponsor. Liquid Carbonic. This company sold CO2 to pharmacists. Big companies like these started making carbonation basically a commodity. Look at that 1903 postmark. You can see how quickly the industry began to mature. Coca-Cola also had carbonation subsidiaries in the Atlanta area as early as the 1920s. By 1960, the idea of soda and its ingredients had become more mainstream as well. By the early 1900s, Coca-Cola had largely been de-cocainized under scrutiny. They took out the cocaine as they grew. The precursor to the FDA had been just as skeptical of the caffeine that was in Coca-Cola. But soda makers fought off that challenge and did reduce caffeine amounts quite a lot. The stereotype lingered. This 1912 film features Dope-a Coke, a parody of addictive Coca-Cola. But the drink's ingredients were already less addictive and pretty mainstream. Still, early Coke ads had to promote pamphlets that shared the truth about Coca-Cola's ingredients after the government raid. But while the Coca-Cola changed some, the container changed the shape of the entire business. In 1960, our hero could have still visited a soda jerk like these guys. By the time this 1940 manual came out, dispensing soda was down to a science, from the big carbonators to the ideal glass. I love that Coke recommended soda jerks always shave. Our 1960 customer might have found the late 50s invention of premix, which produced already mixed soda for smaller amounts, but soda fountains were pretty similar. Bottling was a much bigger change.
When you bring out those familiar bottles with tiny beads of moisture running down their frosty sides, assuring you that the Coke inside is really ice cold.
As early as 1892, this bottle sealing device was patented, just 2 years after our 1890 man was stuck using a Hutchinson bottle or going to a pharmacy. The crown seal cap is the bottle cap, and it was a breakthrough. As importantly, the inventor was a savant who invented a machine for automatically sealing bottles and a bottle capping machine. Bottles were supremely practical. Coca-Cola wouldn't make an iconic design, later slimmed down, without an emphasis on bottles. And you wouldn't have accessories like the six-pack without them either, which showed up in the 1920s but was mainstream by the 1940s. An industry formed around bottles, like this bottle washer, and custom coolers to hold them. It is tempting to focus on the marketing when it comes to Coca-Cola, and I love looking at the original trademark or old ads, but the glass bottle changed soda, and the real impact of the bottle was on the logistics.
Fight to bottle Coca-Cola.
I became a bottler of Coca-Cola. I still am.
The business around this man's soda was profoundly different from the one in the 1890s. Asa Candler was the tycoon who took over Coke from John Pemberton, but he was sitting atop larger trends that kind of just happened to Coca-Cola. In some ways, Coca-Cola became split between the fountain business and the bottlers. They originally cheaply sold the rights to bottle Coke to a parent bottler that split around 1900, which then sold it to a bunch of independent bottlers around the country. They bought it at 92 cents a gallon and sold it to mini bottlers everywhere. And Coke didn't realize that this was a gold mine. Coca-Cola, though, it was too heavy and hard to ship all the way from one central area. The Coke syrup could be made around the country and sent to bottlers to add the water, bottle it up, and distribute it. A lot of soda companies were syrup companies with an army that benefited from selling bottles. This was a franchise phenomenon.
This business, the bottlers of Coca-Cola risked aplenty. It wasn't much they risked when you add it all up and measure it by today. But in those yesterdays, it was everything.
This chart shows just how quickly these independent bottlers grew, from 4 to more than 1,000 by 1920. Okay, so before I speed through the rest of this video, I want to tell you about today's sponsor, which is my Patreon. So if you don't know, I do have a Patreon. It's a place where people can see reaction videos, and I'm adding something new. I'm going to be uploading an ad-free version of every video to Patreon. I polled my Patreon supporters about this feature, and they said we don't really care about that, but I'm gonna do it anyway. I think it would be nice to have as an option, and that'll be available for anyone who pays to be part of Patreon. If you don't want to pay though, totally fine. I also have a free newsletter. I publish it with every video, and I get into something that I couldn't get into in the video. And this time, I'm kind of speeding past World War II, but there is a fascinating history about the integration of Coca-Cola and the Army, especially during World War II. And so, since this video is all about getting a soda in different eras, the newsletter focuses on that. It is hosted on Patreon, but it's free to sign up. I'll send it out with every video, and you get that extra article and an update on anything else that I'm working on. Otherwise, let's go ahead and get back to it. With this formula, Coca-Cola went from an American company to a global one. The 1960 annual report shows what a different soda world it was. Coke had been refreshing customers since 1886, but now it had international syrup concentrate and processing plants with 1,700 bottlers in 105 countries. In the next year's report, all those black dots are bottlers. You can see how the bottlers are vast in number compared to the Coca-Cola-owned plants. All this fed into vending machines as well. By 1950, vending machines were 25% of Coke sales. There were 400,000 around the country. Coke was so dependent on this that they even lobbied the Treasury for a new 7.5-cent coin because the vending machines took nickels and they didn't want to double their price, but they couldn't reliably make change. But Coke eventually did raise prices, and the soda itself was about to transform again.
I'd like to buy the world a home and furnish it with love.
In the course of 60 years, our hero started getting soda in a lot of new ways, and soda companies became what we know today. Carbonation here stayed pretty similar. The big changes were in the syrup, in a couple of key ways.
Introducing Diet Coke.
Diet sodas started to emerge in the 1950s and 1960s, using sweeteners like cyclamates and saccharin. Coca-Cola was timid until 1983. The bigger shift for sodas was the introduction of high-fructose corn syrup as a consistent sugar substitute. Early experiments with beet sugar were surpassed by HFCS in the 1970s. It shows up in the 1974 annual report as a new experiment, driven by a combination of corn subsidies and sugar tariffs. Coke started with a 50-50 mix of corn syrup and sugar, but by 1984, they were in on HFCS in the USA. There have been retro cane sugar launches in the United States since the 2010s, but HFCS or other artificial sweeteners are now the norm, which is very different from our soda drinker in 1960 and 1890. The containers changed a ton as well. Those glass bottles were joined by cans and plastic ones. Steel cans were in use, but not ubiquitous in the 1950s. Experiments like this profoundly unstackable Pepsi cone show how early it all was. Steel Coke cans became the norm, then aluminum, like this one from 1967, kicking off a big transition to non-returnable containers, and a big transition to cans. In 1978, the plastic bottle made its debut. How can you not love these old ads? For me, more Coke. Now, I think you could spend the rest of this video listing out infinite SKUs. You could be like Coke and talk about statistics or label-less bottles like it does in its annual reports, or how freestyle machines are kind of similar to the old fountains. But the logistics gives you the real story. Many soda companies started gobbling up those independent bottlers. Pepsi and Coke did similar stuff, and they got either big stakes or full ownership. And then it was an obsessive quest to get soda everywhere. The examples are hilarious. In the 1980s, the Breakmate tried to replace coffee breaks with Coke breaks in the office. Big long-term deals with fast food companies like McDonald's became part of the business. If our soda drinker was a student, they fought to sponsor his schools. And if there was no distribution, Coke set up a micro-distribution channel in places like Tanzania. They got people to distribute Coke everywhere. So by 2020, the ultimate American company was almost evenly split across the globe. So here we are, 3 different soda eras, 3 wildly different ways of getting a soda. Why does it matter? Looking at the history of soda, and in particular Coca-Cola, helped me see that Coca-Cola and companies like it really are soda maximizing machines.
Yes, Coke is it. Huh? You're nodding. Yes, that's right. You would like this.
The 1997 annual report is my favorite because it is a true mask-off moment. Coca-Cola is reveling in its mission to sell more Coca-Cola. This year, even as we sell 1 billion servings of our product daily, the world will still consume 47 billion servings of other beverages. They are so mad that people are drinking non-Coca-Cola things. They've got these graphics that say that they've got to continue their mission because people are still saying for all the tea in China instead of for all the Coke, or because some fountain drinks are still easier to find. Water fountains. Yet if you look at the annual reports from the past few years, the tone has changed a lot, even if the core Coca-Cola mission hasn't. All these elements, the ingredients, the containers, and logistics have changed with the world, but they have also changed the world at the pace of 1 billion a day. It's up to us to decide what the next 60 years are going to look like. All right, that is it for this one. Let me know how I should dress up that mannequin permanently. Should I do the 1890 or 1961 in the background, or the 2021, I guess? I'm curious what you think. I'm also curious if you have any opinions about this video. Like, was Coca-Cola a good proxy for all of soda? Or do you think that it left out some fundamental technological or business changes that other soda companies might have experienced? Do you have opinions about soda's ubiquity? Is it benign, or is it important for people to kind of push back against it? I have a lot of opinions about it, but I'm curious to hear yours as well. Otherwise, thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. Thanks for trying this new format with me too.